very much. So I'll be handing over now to our president to give us a brief note before we start the press parley proper. Madam President.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Publicity and Advocacy, Mrs. Oye. The Vice Chair of the committee is also here physically with us. The Vice President of the Institute, Mrs. Uto Upana, Fcis, will also be joining us physically very soon. She would also be online with us, spending the time she joins us physically. Honorary Treasurer, thank you for finding the time to come. And our media partners, we appreciate you for being here today. And essentially, you know what the usual drill. We would like to just from mind have a conversation around issues pertaining to governance, particularly within our national space, and also what has also been going on with us as a governance institute, as a professional institute. So I guess we just leave the floor open to take your questions, and we'll be happy to provide our insights on the issues that you might want to touch on. So once again, we welcome you to the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So the floor is open. Basically, our president has been on for roughly 6 months now.
5 months.
5 months, okay, 5 months now. So we'll talk about how it has been, what are the plans for the future, and then other trending issues that we have outlined previously to discuss. So, Gloria, you want to start? Okay, Rakia.
Rukayat.
Madam Chairman, I was thinking the president will give us
background.
Then we can now take questions coming out of that. If you don't mind, Madam.
No, we'll take the questions directly. All right. Rukayat.
Well, the question in front of me is not what I really wanted to ask. But do you think Nigerians are hasty in their criticism of government, considering the fact that the administration of President Bola Tinubu is less than a year in office?
Good question. Do we think Nigerians are hasty in, say that again?
In their criticism.
Okay, criticism in what?
For example,
which particular issue?
Okay, so we're talking about the recent exodus of companies from the Nigerian space. We had GlaxoSmithKline, and then most recently we've had P&G leave. And this signals that the Nigerian macroeconomic variables are not friendly enough for many of these businesses to conduct their daily activities. So as a result, many of them have decided to do import dependent based kind of business. So given some of this, and then also the recent kidnappings, there was one that happened at Abuja like yesterday or 2 days ago, and it also involved a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old child. So a lot of these issues, insecurity, constant insecurity, the issues in the East. So many of these economic issues and security issues are making many of these businesses to leave the table. So given that,
if I may just add to that, to add more context to what you said, we have the petrol subsidy, which is like the crux of the whole matter, and we know how it has elicited reaction among many Nigerians, and we know that there is an inflation currently, especially when it comes to goods and services. But also, we know that the president has done some remarkable policies. He has done some groundbreaking things. One of which is the budget. The budget. I think in the history for a while now, nobody has done it this early, and that is quite remarkable. But all the same, Nigerians are not having it. No, it's in context to her questions. Okay, she has asked a question. I'm just giving context to it. So yes, I think from that side, we just want to know if you think that the press is hasty. Nigerians are up to a year or better. Do you think Nigerians are hasty in judging or their criticism of his administration.
Okay, I think your contextual explanation also helps, because some things must have led to the current state of affairs. And definitely the issue of the first subsidy removal is a major one that has led to quite a significant impact within the economic affairs. And whilst we're looking at the fallout, from that, we also need to look at the rationale that led to the removal in the first instance. And we also need to look at the benefits that have accrued to us as a nation, right? Also by virtue of the removal. And we need to also consider what will be the long-term positive impact on the economy as a whole. So, of course, the positive impact might not be felt, instantaneously. And let's also, without attempting to defend the government or anything like that, let us also put our minds to the fact that all of the socioeconomic problems did not happen just yesterday. And whatever policies are being put in place, whatever efforts are being put in place by the government, there must still be gestation period to see all this, fuse together and give us a better environmental satisfaction that we want to see. So, well, we might say Nigerians are not too hasty. We may also say they are hasty. Now, if we say they're not hasty in criticizing the government, when you also let the government, when you set the tone, right, as a citizen, as to what you want to see from government, it also puts the government on their toes. So you see that government would try all their best to put all the right policies, in the right perspectives. The issue of the early budget, the appropriation bill that you spoke about is also very key. You can see a government that also wants to ensure that things pick up as quickly as possible economically. And you rightly mentioned a time there was in the past that we used to have such long delays with its attendant negative impacts on national life generally. But this has actually set a good tone, right? And when the budget is presented on time, early discussion leads to approval and also early implementation. So essentially, government also attention to is the implementation part of the budget. And of course, the National Assembly also has a role to play here in terms of oversight for NDs that have revenue generating, functions, so that they can be properly monitored and put on their toes to ensure that they meet their revenue targets. So essentially, that's a right step in the right direction, which must be commended. When the government is able to meet expectations in certain areas, we should be bold enough to commend them. And when there are also areas where there is significant need to continue to overhaul things, we must also be bold enough to say that. And a major area of that is the issue of security. Definitely, there's still a lot of work to be done in that regard. The other day, the commander-in-chief himself was at, I think, a strategy, so I can't remember, for the service chiefs, and he gave his 100% assurance of support to provide all that would be required by the forces to ensure that security issue or insecurity issue, as it were, is confronted and definitely also brought to a level where Nigerians would feel comfortable enough to sleep with their two eyes closed. So I believe that the government is also aware of all these issues. The issue of inflation, which is also a corollary of the removal of the subsidy, and also the impacts on daily national life. I think that we think that government needs to do a bit more in the interventions that would cushion, the impacts on the people. for specifics that you mentioned about the specific companies that have exited the country, truth of the matter is that when things get better, it will be obvious to everyone to see. And essentially what I am trying to say is, when we improve on all legs of our national life, economically, socially, security, and all of that, I am sure that there is no foreign investor that would say a conducive environment. By the way, I must make bold to say that as some are exiting, some are actually also, coming in. There's something those ones who are coming in are also saying, right, that are positives for their operations, and they believe that, there's hope at the end of the tunnel. So what we need to pay our attention to is the government putting the right sticks in the right fire. I think once we have a fair comfort as to the fact moving in the right direction, then we would have hope. Well, interestingly, the budget was named the budget of renewed hope, right? So there will be hope for better things to come. So I think the people should just continue to, ensure that government do the right thing, particularly the press, so that they can be accountable, and they will be mindful that the people are watching what they're doing.
All right, let me take it off from there. Budget of hope and government doing the right thing. What is Icsan's position on the signs that government is showing on profligacy? When I say that, I mean Nigeria went to COP28 with over 1,000 delegates. That's kind of profligacy. Governments are making various appointments, enlarging the public sector. That's kind of profligacy. So what is Icsan's position on this, looking at governance issues? That one is one. Two, in a challenging environment like this, where companies are living, those are coming, inflation is high, interest rate is high, insecurity, what is Icsan advising the private sector where you present? What you are advising them to do? Because in such circumstances, they are likely to undercut governance issues, governance practice. So what are you advising them to do in this circumstance?
Thank you very much. The first issue has to do with cost of governance. As an institute, we have always advocated for cost of governance to get its barest minimum. And the reason is not far-fetched. If government is tasking the people to tighten their belts, I think that government should also lead by example. So definitely that remains our position, for the people to also see the impact, or rather the efforts of the government to reduce the cost of governance. This would free, resources to attend to other pressing issues, particularly to pushing the impact of everyday living of Nigerians. It's obvious that most Nigerians are living below the poverty line. Inflation is at an all high 27.5% or thereabouts as of October. So it calls for sober reflection by all and sundry, including the government itself. And I believe that Nigerians are doing well in chesting, most of these socio-economic headwinds. And if Nigerians are showing understanding and chesting all of this, taking it in their stride, and being extremely resilient in the face of all of this, it's not appropriate to see some level of wastages still being, witnessed or exhibited. So that's that, and that remains our advice to government. Cost of governance should continue to be an area that government pays attention to in a conscious manner, so that people don't feel you're not acting what you're preaching for them to do. As for the private sector, I would like to flip that question, and which is, again, it all comes back to the government providing an enabling environment for the private sector to thrive, and to also put policies in place that would also be conducive for businesses. We're talking about ease of doing business, areas of tax liabilities, providing some measure of support, for the private sector to thrive. And I believe when these are all in place, the private sector would equally be encouraged to retain their workforce rather than, lay off, and also they'll be able to meet their obligations to government in the area of taxation. We can't run away from the fact that when private sector is also pushed to the wall and there's so much squeeze, they might be pushed to take some extreme, decisions and actions, such as reducing their workforce and all of that. So we still need to appeal to the government to ensure that the private sector continues to be encouraged to stay on, remain in business, and be operationally viable enough to retain their workforce, so that we don't add to the already stifling job and the unemployment situation that we have on our hands.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. Let me go back to the inflation and how it's affecting Nigerians, because the fact of the matter is back to Nigerians, and we are all Nigerians, so it affects every one of us. Part of the
Are you sure we are ready?
well, part of the intervention of the federal government has been to pay some monies to 15 million households, some kind of intervention funds to 50 million households. But aside that, there's also the conversation about the revised, what's it called now?
Minimum wage.
Minimum wage, the revised minimum wage. And that conversation is something that is going to happen in the year 2024. It's something that is impending. We saw how the Nigerian Labour Congress and the federal government were at loggerheads this year. The situation was very intensive this year, and we're looking at how it can be reduced, that loggerheads, because all the time that they were at loggerheads, it's affecting the people. So in the year 2024, that we're looking at a revised minimum wage, the conversation around the revised minimum wage, what would be your advice? What would be the advice of Icsan? What would be the advice of Icsan, to ensure that there is a smooth negotiation between the labor and the government?
You've answered the question, negotiation. So definitely there must be a lot of consultations. There must be stakeholder engagement, carrying along the major labor unions. We have the TUC, we have the Nigerian Labour Congress. I believe that government should ensure that all of these different labor interests are carried along, such that the position that will be reached at the end of the day would be a win-win, and then everyone feels a part of that decision. And it wouldn't appear as though government just, dumped that position on their lap. Once the right engagements are done, I believe that there will be less, aggravation by the time the government exposes the level of review that they're looking to doing. So essentially, we recommend adequate and proper stakeholder engagement. And just to use the word you used, negotiation, to be sure that whatever is decided will be acceptable to everyone and seen to be fair also to all the parties involved.
Okay, so a follow-up question to that. There has been reports that the 35,000 naira wage allowance that the federal government had promised initially that would be paid to civil servants. So report shows that they paid just 1 month, and then so the month of October, November, and then now in December, they're pending. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, because it's one thing to sit at a round table with the labor union and everybody well represented, stakeholder engagement, as you said, but it's another thing keeping to the end of the bargain. So the citizens cannot be expecting the 25,000 naira, 25,000 to 15 million households. We've hardly seen people that have come out to say, okay, yes, we've benefited from it. So this goes to show that the position of the government with the citizens sometimes is usually not very truthful and fair. So I think I'd like for you to address that, please.
Okay, I believe you're talking about the distribution to the quote and unquote poor.
Not just the poor household. So everybody that works for the federal government is entitled to a 35,000 naira wage allowance for the next 6 months, right? But report shows that we've got for just the month of September. So how do we get government to always keep up to their part of the bargain? If you say you will do this, they'll be true to it. If not, we'll just keep having this NLC, TUC, everybody going back to the table back and forth, and then the policy is heated up.
Well, the simple way to ensure accountability in that area is for the government to be transparent in the process that is being adopted. And also, if there are challenges around why it has been stopped or why the government has put it on hold, it clearly stated so that everyone, there will be no speculations as to the reasons why it was halted or why it was put on hold. So again, as one of the bedrocks of good corporate governance, the issue of transparency is very key, and also information dissemination when it is required and at the right time as well.
Research, I know you must have done some research for you on Japan. You know, asking you, Japan, you remember me? All right, I don't know what is Icsan's position on Japan syndrome vis-a-vis economy. That was one. What are the costs in 2024?
Japan syndrome. I'm sure you've also heard about Japada syndrome.
Japada. No, the trend is Japan. I thought it to tell us.
Who will come back to Nigeria?
No, let us.
The trend is not new. It's only the intensity that's cause for worry, and also the demographic that is affected, mostly our youthful population, who are our own future as a nation, and who should be encouraged at all costs to stay back and offer the youthful service and youthful impact to national development. The sad thing is, and which was why I referred to hope earlier on, if a particular graphic find it difficult to see a future that includes them, it's difficult for you to advise them not to, find what they believe is or might be greener pasture for them. But I said it jokingly when you asked, I said, I hope you also know about the Japada syndrome. When things get better, you cannot light a candle and put it under a bushel. When things get better, it's going to be obvious for everyone to know. And I sincerely believe that Japada would happen. Because no, if you look through from the 80s, we've always had people, yes, migrate, they're emigrating abroad and, they go and pursue their careers. Many medical doctors did that. Currently, that is. So it's always a cycle, but there is always hope of, a lot of it is also not by choice, by the way. If you have a chance to, interview some of them, rub minds with them, and it's not by choice. At the tiniest bit of improvement in Nigeria, most of them are willing to jump back on the plane and come back home.
True.
So again, this comes back to how we harness the resources. Let's take, for instance, from the removal of subsidy now, we're told by the coordinating minister of the economy, Mr. Waledo, that we had a savings of about 1 trillion, or now we'll be having about 1 trillion over. So how are we channeling these resources to the right channels that would create the maximum impact for economy? Those are the kind of conversations that our government should be, looking to having with us, and also being transparent with how the excess is being distributed. It's being distributed across the 3 tiers of government. But in terms of utilization, there must be more engagements so that people would know which sectors they're channeling all of this excess revenue into and the resultant impacts that we can expect.
Engagement within the government and within the private sector.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think that's very, very key. So I believe that Japa will become Japada syndrome. It's only a matter of time. There's no place like home, and interestingly, there's no place like Nigeria. And they're already feeling that. Those that have also left, I also know a lot of them that are saying that, look, it's not as rosy as they thought it would be when they got there, but circumstances again happened, and I believe that they will still be back as it were. So essentially, we also believe that the savings that we're getting from the subsidy will be channeled into the right sectors: agriculture, mining, mineral resources, infrastructural development, so that the impacts can be felt within the shortest time possible. All of this yes, to encourage our youth to come back. It's very important because we can't have all our youth out of the country and they're using they're going to use that to better another man's country. It's not very pleasant, but it is what it is. And what we need to concentrate on as a government, what government needs to concentrate on is to ensure that they turn around the narrative that would also make these young people begin to do return within the shortest time possible. Backward integration.
On Icsan and the future.
Icsan and future. You want to take that?
Okay. What are the achievements this year and what's your plan?
Okay, let me take the achievement and then maybe we can add. We have been very fortunate to have some interesting wins in the last few months, and some have been quite trailblazing and groundbreaking. And one of it, I'm sure you're already aware, is our incursion into the north with the creation of our Kaduna State branch chapter, Kaduna State chapter. Earlier on and online, we have with us the newly minted chairman of that chapter, Alhaji Tijani Abibu, Fcis. So for us, that's a major win for the institute because we believe that it's just the stepping stone. This Kaduna chapter will be a stepping stone to ensuring that we have the kind of spread that we've been craving for as an institute, such that the end in Icsan, which is Nigeria, will be well articulated. And we have a plan for that, and we'll continue to ensure that we follow the plan and improve our presence in other parts of the country. Currently, we have about 8 chapters spread across the Southwest, South, and Southeast. Yeah, so now we have that as a major step as an institute. Recently as well, we had the MOU signing of our collaboration with Nigeria Legislative and Democratic Studies, NILS, yes, National Institute of Democratic and Legal Legislative Studies, on sometime last month, yeah, yes, with the University of Benin. It's a tripartite MOU between the 3 institutions to begin a master's program in governance. And this is a big win for us as well. It's something that has been in the pipeline for a while. So taking that off our list and actually now looking forward to commencing the program at NILS in collaboration with UNIBEN is also a step in the right direction for us. We've also had some significant engagement with relevant stakeholders in the governance space. As lately as yesterday, we're still with the Executive Secretary of the Financial Reporting Council. We had very useful discussions around areas of collaboration between Icsan and the FRC in the area of governance, not only for the private sector, but also for the public sector and the not-for-profit organizations. Talking about stakeholder engagement, we also met with the entire senior management team of the NERC, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, and we had very useful discussions as well as to how Icsan and NERC can partner in the area of governance. That is a space, if you agree with me, that truly requires a lot of, governance for the licensees that are regulated by the NERC. I think so far it's been interesting, but we look forward to 2024 with even renewed vigor, and we believe there are so many other actions that the council is already putting in plan.
The president was elected, let's go of sales.
Okay, maybe when I give the floor, the other treasurer can mention that in the things we'll talk about. So essentially, during the period under review, we also had an engagement with the Oyo State Head of Service. We had interactions with the Vice Chancellor of the Ahmadu Bello University Zaria and Kaduna State University on areas of collaboration for linkage programs. And it's been quite rewarding, and we look forward to many more such engagements in the nearest future. So I'll yield the floor now to the Honorary Treasurer to add to that.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Standing on existing protocol. As you're all aware that there's a global body, a global association regulating our profession. As a matter of fact, our profession kicked off from UK before we got autonomy. So one of the things that's happened in the last 3 months is the fact that the global body, we are a member of the council, and then we were able to retain our seats because it's not year in, year out that you retain, that seat, and not just to retain that seat, because it's a national thing. When you're appointed for something, it is assumed that your country, is appointed, and that's why it's always good to have quality representation. Like he was trying to say. Yes. And then, of course, we have quality, representation in the person of Madam President, as you all interacted with her, so you can attest to that. So just last month, earlier this month, we were elected the treasurer. So we are the global, treasurer of the global body. I think that's the first time a Nigerian is occupying that position, if not African, or a first female, occupying that position. So that's for that. Then talking about some other activities that happened in the course of the last, 5 months. The president had said that we visited the Financial Reporting Council. We were able to also seal an arrangement, which will lead into further collaborations, very especially in the area of capacity, building and enhancements in the area of, corporate governance at a very large scale. But with time, we will unveil the details, of that. Then talking about plans for 2024 and beyond, I dare to say beyond. As you're all aware, the Financial Reporting Council, and I think, said to us about 2 weeks ago that the president of the Federal Republic will be unveiling the codes. Currently, we have the codes of corporate governance for private sector, and the ones for the public sector and the not-for-profit sector will be unveiled, in Q1. Of course, we are positioned definitely, you know what our profession is all about, to enhance effectiveness in governance, so with our various interactions and discussions, we are positioning ourselves as an institute and then positioning our members, at large to be of great value in that. Boards will be constituted. I mean, the codes will guide, the governance processes in all of those parastatals in those, various sectors. So we are positioning our members, to not only to just take position, but to actually, help, in the effectiveness of whatever boards are constituted, and then generally the governance, process and all of that. And as you know, with the permission of my presidents, for those of you that have been our partners for years, we are planning, to give our secretariats, a new look. In the nearest future, you will see, because you asked for what will happen in 2024, you will see, steps that will be taken, and I'm sure that as our partners, you probably will be invited to witness some of those, activities, and we'll be pursuing our bill. You're all aware. We will take further strides. I mean, the House has just been reconstituted, and then they're doing so. We also are working towards ensuring that we take further steps, in bringing that to realization. So that's that as far as our plans for 2024.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll just take like two questions and we're done. Okay. I think we should hear from the gentleman, madam.
Key players in the security sector have been, making advocacy as to the need for a police reform, and the committee has been set up to that effect. In which would you like to advise that committee? Where will you want the committee to take as their areas of focus or targets? There are a lot of questions as to what should be done to the Nigerian police to have a policing of the 21st century. So what do you think the committee should be looking at?
Essentially, it's important for the committee to look at further entrenching professionalism within the police force. Once that is achieved, we would have less indiscipline within the rank and file, and issues that definitely lead to corruption and lack of professionalism that permeates mostly, not all, mostly around that sector right now. So I believe that the committee should pay particular attention to professionalizing the police once again, and bringing a sense of decency, a sense of discipline, a sense of knowing what they carry each time that they are in that uniform. They are representing the integrity of the whole nation. And essentially, they are expected to act and behave in certain ways. And once professionalism is there, every other thing.
Okay, have we put into consideration the mode of recruitment of personnel into the force?
Professionalism. When you are transparent and professional in all the process, and you pay attention to also ensuring that governance issues are not left to conjecture, it's a lot of things will fall in place. And when you also set that tone from the top, it also helps. So those are the kind of areas everything is woven around professionalism. Once they get that right, it's going to be very impactful. The committee's work will be impactful.
Okay. Still, Christmas is a few weeks away.
One job, right? One job, right?
And still, just like I'm drawing from what they've asked before, so though not repeating what they've asked, they said, yeah. So my question is, and the cost of living is astronomically high, and the Nigerians they are growing, as this high cost of living has exceeded the real income. So now you spoke on on the government's renewed hope agenda. Do you have could you give us, or are you optimistic on when the economy is going to bounce back.
The vice president told you to give them the 5 months, right?
So I think in terms of being optimistic, yes, personally, I am optimistic. I will forever be optimistic about Nigeria. And I think that if we all are not optimistic, we won't even be here. That's the truth of the matter. I believe that gestation period must happen. Policies will take their time to get get traction fully. And my own word is for all of us to remain optimistic that things can only get better. We are coming from a place of deep-rooted and deep-seated anyhowness, let me put it that way. And for things to be cleaned up and then we begin to build again will take time. So a bit of patience. Nigerians persevere a lot. So I think a little bit more perseverance will do us.
No, I learned about 22,000 persons have lost their job. The data from the NECA said that when about 10 multinationals have divested, that has translated to 2,000 workers that have lost their jobs. So they should, and some are even dying due to hunger. The hunger in the land now is extremely high. So should we still be, how patient should we be, and why because you are giving us hope that we should be patient. So there are no strong
steps that we see the government taking, and we believe that it would germinate into something that would be helpful. Part of what the government can pay attention to is also to help the private sector to thrive. Yeah, I think I mentioned that earlier on, to stimulate buoyancy and productivity. You know, once those things are also in place, it would encourage the private sector to also stay in business and even employ more people rather than lay off. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the questions and for honoring our invitation. You are partners. We can't go out personally to talk about ourselves, so you do it for us. I would also like to remind us that we are coming together for a training in February. Mr. Michael will share more details as regards that. And we would like, as soon as possible, for this first conference to be in the papers as soon as you can. We appreciate you most dearly. So don't say I only gave you red carpet the first time. I give you all the time. I appreciate you most dearly, and we look forward to a continued friendly relationship from 2024. On behalf of the President of the Institute, Mrs. Funmi Ekundayo, Fcis, council members, and other members of the Institute, we extend our heartfelt gratitude, and if you would permit us, also wish you happy holidays and a happy new year.
Thank you very much.